So next up, I want to talk to you about barcodes because we all know retailers use them a lot, but in manufacturing, there are so many different layers. So they have really different needs, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You kind of nailed it with that. They have different needs. But yeah, I mean, of course, we got to talk about barcodes. That's our bread and butter. I love barcodes. And I think that manufacturers need them more than most. Like you were saying, retailers, they tend to use barcodes, for things like, inventory movement. Obviously, if they have a brick and mortar, they'll be using it for their checkout. But that's kind of really about it. If they're really plucky, they might be using them for they might barcode their shelves or use it a little bit for a more robust inventory management. For the most part, though, it is just kind of track inventory, right? And in that similar vein, it's not just inventory, but it's finished products, right? It's just the products that they're selling. So it's a lot less to worry about. Whereas manufacturers, on the other hand, they have all of that stuff to worry about. I mean, maybe not checkout, but they have all the other stuff to worry about, and then so much more on top of that, right? They have a lot more actual physical items to track, because not only do they have to track the finished goods products that they're selling, but they have to track all of the components, all of the sub-assemblies. Often manufacturing and assembly companies, they're going to be using really expensive equipment in order to do the job that they need to do these production processes, right? All of that equipment needs to be tracked as well. So there's so much that manufacturers can use barcodes for that it just makes it crazy to not,
So it's not just about the inventory, but it's tracking the entire production workflow.
Exactly. The entire production process, even including, where things are in the production process and where machines are, whether or not they're being repaired, all that stuff.
Never thought about machines.
Yeah. That's one that kind of slips under the radar is the asset tracking, but it is something that is incredibly useful. And again, it's really very important to manufacturers because they're going to have incredibly expensive assets they need to manage, right?
Could you dive deeper into what the benefits are for barcoding in manufacturing?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, the big one, of course, is going to be the tracking your stock levels. It's just going to make that way, way easier. When you're doing a production run and you're grabbing components and you're using them up, keeping track of what you're using is going to be incredibly hard if you're manually typing everything out on, into a spreadsheet or writing everything down. Barcodes are just going to be a matter of you can just scan those components. It's going to be it's that easy. Scan it, rather than write it down. It's going to slow you down. Not only is it going to speed you up though, but it's also going to eliminate a lot of those human errors, right? So people obviously are going to make keystroke mistakes when they're typing things in or writing things, or if they're illegible handwriting, if people are still doing with things
doctors writing.
Doctors writing, a little chicken scratch, right? So I mean, those things they create problems, right? Where barcodes are very binary, which is what's so great about them. Either they scan or they don't, right? So there's no way you can scan a barcode and it's going to give you a different product. The chance that it just doesn't happen, right? Barcodes either scan or they don't. They work or they don't. There's either a barcode connected to your product or there isn't, right? So it just really helps with that. So tracking stock levels is huge. Another one would be your shipping and receiving, right? The shipping and receiving process for manufacturers can be a total nightmare if you're not using barcodes, because you're getting in tons of components all the time that you're then transforming into something else, and then and the whole process of following those components through the supply, through your business is going to be really, really difficult if you're doing it by hand. But if you're getting a shipment in of all these components and you can just scan those components, write it, and they just get added into your inventory. It just makes things way easier than if you're okay, you got to open up this box and you got to write this, how many components of that, and then add that up. And it creates a way more hectic and chaotic environment. And again, there's a lot more human error that can happen from that as well, right? And again, going back to something that we mentioned is equipment tracking. So tracking those really expensive machines. So it's way easier with barcodes to be able to know, where they are, first of all. So if you have a very expensive asset, you can look up in your products, okay, which location is it being stored at right now? You can also look at details like when was it serviced last? When the maintenance, is it currently being serviced? Is it has it been serviced recently? Because a lot of these times you should be servicing things on a regular schedule, so you can kind of keep up with that. And it also just makes it easier to say you're on the floor and there's a machine and you're I don't know how long it's been since it's been serviced. You can just go ahead and scan that barcode. The product will come up. You'll have all of the information that you need right at a glance, right? Whereas opposed if you weren't using barcodes, you'd either have to go back to the office, look up a file, go through a filing cabinet or something. I don't know. Or a spreadsheet, probably. God. So I mean, barcodes just make that process a lot easier, right? And then the last one is something that's really, really important. It's often overlooked, and it's going to make tracking your cost of goods manufactured way easier. And it's something that a lot of our customers, particularly, have come to us and said that, they're not tracking their cost of goods manufactured properly. Therefore, they're not charging as much as they should be. So they're kind of like bleeding money in a certain degree, where if you're using barcodes, it's going to be way easier to kind of gather that information and track that information. So you're going to have a lot better of an idea of what it actually costs to produce those final products, right? So that way it's going to influence your pricing strategy in the future.
And you don't lose money.
Exactly. Why are you producing things for free or, like losing money?
So if you were to give a manufacturer a recommendation on how to barcode their workflow, what would that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, the official way of putting barcodes on products is through GS1. So GS1 essentially is a nonprofit organization. They kind of are in charge of like standardization through business organizations globally. And a big part of that, of course, is barcodes.
Do all manufacturers need GS1 barcodes?
Yeah, so essentially if you're manufacturing finished products and you're selling those finished products to people, you absolutely 100% you need barcodes that are GS1 certified on those finished products, right? So I mean, they're not just good for authenticity and traceability, but they're actually required for like a lot of retailers and even online marketplaces now, such as Amazon. You're required to have a registered GS1 barcode to sell those products. So for the finished products, you absolutely need a GS1 barcode.
That makes sense. But if the purpose of GS1 barcodes are only to be recognized by outside organizations, then manufacturers don't need GS1 barcodes for the entire process, right?
That's absolutely correct. Actually, in fact, it's probably a bad idea. I mean, the reasons for that are the GS1 barcodes cost money. Ultimately, at the end of the day, especially the more that you buy, the more expensive it's going to be. If you're getting just under 10, you can just buy the single barcodes with no, renewal fee. But if you're getting barcodes for a lot more than 10, and if you're, manufacturer,
no point in paying money to make barcodes.
Exactly. Why are you doing that, right? It doesn't make any
free.
sense. Yeah. So if you're using just for internal tracking, you absolutely should be just creating your own custom barcodes right in-house. Yeah.